The fluorescent lights of LaGuardia's Terminal B hummed with that particular pitch only heard in empty airports during the witching hour. Sergeant Marcus Cole flexed his left hand unconsciously, the scar tissue along his knuckles pulling tight from the winter air that seeped through the terminal's revolving doors. At his side, Rex, a 98-pound Dutch shepherd with a distinctive black saddle marking that made him look like he was wearing tactical armor, stood motionless except for the subtle flare of his nostrils. The dog's breath formed small clouds in the chilled air, his entire body vibrating with contained energy beneath the NYPD K9 harness. Cole checked his watch, 3:47. They'd been called in 3 hours early for this assignment, and the bitter aftertaste of the gas station coffee he'd chugged on the way here still coated his tongue. He reached into his pocket, fingers brushing against the worn leather of Rex's training clicker out of habit. Across the gate area, Deputy U.S. Marshal Elena Vasquez stood like a statue amidst the rows of empty seats, her tailored navy blazer failing to conceal the Glock 19 on her hip. The glow from her tablet illuminated the sharp angles of her face, high cheekbones, a slightly crooked nose from what Cole guessed was an old break, and eyes that never stopped moving. The witness she guarded, Daniel Kwan, a slight man drowning in an oversized Columbia jacket, sat curled in on himself like a pill bug, his fingers working nervously at the label of a water bottle. The reflection from his wireframe glasses hid the dark circles beneath his eyes, but not the way his knee bounced at double time. Cole approached with Rex moving in perfect sync beside him, the dog's claws clicking rhythmically against the polished floor. "Sergeant Marcus Cole, NYPD K9 Unit," he said, extending his hand. "This is Rex. We'll be running security sweeps for your transport today." Vasquez's grip was firm, her palm cool and dry. "Appreciate the backup, Sergeant." She lowered her voice as Kwan's head twitched toward them. "Our intel suggests the Lien Triad may attempt to intercept before we reach Seattle. Kwan here is the last surviving witness to their West Coast money laundering operation. They've already made examples of his 2 associates." As if on cue, Rex's ears swiveled toward the jet bridge where a baggage handler was maneuvering a cart piled with suitcases. Cole noted the subtle tension in the dog's shoulders, not quite an alert, but that pre-alert focus that always made the hair on Cole's neck stand up. The handler, a kid who couldn't be older than 20 with acne scars and a Yankees cap pulled low, didn't glance their way as he worked. The Boeing 787 Dreamliner sat at gate 17 like a sleeping giant, its composite skin gleaming under the harsh apron lights. Captain Rachel Haddad, her silver-streaked dark braid tucked neatly under her cap, stood in the cockpit doorway reviewing a weather report on her tablet. Cole clocked the faded USAF tattoo peeking out from beneath her sleeve as she gestured toward the radar display. "Sergeant, I need you to understand our time constraints," Haddad said, her voice carrying the clipped precision of someone who'd spent years giving orders in cockpits. The storm system over the Midwest was intensifying faster than predicted. If we delay boarding by even 20 minutes, we risk getting diverted to Portland. Our window is that tight. Cole nodded but kept his attention on Rex. The dog was working methodically along the starboard side bulkhead, his nose twitching near an auxiliary power unit access panel. Unlike standard alerts where Rex would sit or paw at a target, he'd adopted what Cole called his ghost stance. Completely motionless except for the faint tremor in his hindquarters that only someone who'd worked with him daily would notice. "Captain, my dog is indicating on this panel," Cole said, kneeling beside Rex. He ran a hand along the dog's flank, feeling the tension in the muscle. "We need to inspect it." Haddad exhaled sharply through her nose. "That compartment was inspected and cleared during last night's maintenance cycle. Unless your dog has a degree in aerospace engineering, there's nothing in there but wiring and insulation." First Officer Derek Cho, a baby-faced Korean-American with the build of a linebacker, leaned out from the cockpit. "Rachel, maintenance logs show they replaced some fiber-optic cabling back there after the Tokyo flight. Maybe." "Thank you, Derek," Haddad cut him off. She turned back to Cole, her expression softening slightly. "Look, Sergeant, I respect what you and your dog do. But we have 43 passengers waiting to board, and every minute we delay." Rex suddenly whined deep in his throat, an uncharacteristic sound that set Cole's nerves on edge. The dog pawed at the panel, then looked back at Cole with what could only be described as urgency. Cole made his decision. "With all due respect, Captain, Federal Aviation regulations give my unit full authority to inspect any area of concern. This will take 5 minutes." He didn't wait for permission, pulling a multi-tool from his belt. Haddad's jaw tightened, but she nodded curtly. 5 minutes. Then we're boarding with or without your clearance." What happened next would replay in Cole's memory in fractured, slow-motion fragments. The access screws came out too easily, their threads showing fresh tool marks. When Cole pried open the cover, the interior wiring bundles were suspiciously neat, too organized compared to the usual nest of cables in these compartments. Behind the primary wiring harness, someone had carefully hollowed out a section of insulation and composite material, creating a cavity just large enough for a compact human form. The edges were smooth, professional work, not some rush job. A figure uncoiled from the darkness like a nightmare-given form. The stench hit Cole first, sweat, adrenaline, and something chemical beneath it. Then movement as the man's limbs unfolded with a series of sickening pops, dislocated joints resetting. A ceramic blade flashed toward Cole's throat and a practiced arc. Rex moved faster than should have been possible for an 80-pound animal, intercepting the strike mid-air. The knife shattered against Rex's titanium-reinforced collar as the dog's 250 psi bite force crushed the assailant's wrist. The ensuing chaos unfolded in seconds. Vasquez had Quan on the floor behind a row of seats, her body shielding his as she barked into her radio. Cho was already on the cockpit phone calling for security. Haddad, to her credit, didn't freeze. She grabbed the fire axe from its mount near the galley and took up a defensive position. But Cole's world had narrowed to the man pinned beneath Rex's weight. Asian, late 30s, with the lean musculature of someone who trained not for show but for function. His black tactical clothing bore no insignia, but the faded tattoo peeking from his collar, a stylized dragon with a missing eye, marked him as Lien Triad. Most chilling were his eyes when they met Cole's. Not fear or anger but something closer to professional respect. Jin Wei, the man gasped in heavily accented English as Rex adjusted his grip on the man's arm. They call me Ghost. A thin smile. Now I see why. In the FBI's makeshift command center set up in an airport conference room, Special Agent Naomi Torres held up an evidence bag containing Wei's smartphone. The device had been surgically implanted in a waterproof casing beneath the skin of his thigh, a discovery made during the strip search. He had real-time updates on Quan's movements, Torres said, tapping the screen to display a series of encrypted messages. Her manicured nail traced one in particular. A gate change notification sent 43 minutes before Wei's estimated entry into the aircraft. A shadow crossed her face. This came through Justice Department channels. Someone inside the Marshal's Service or possibly the U.S. Attorney's Office is compromised. Across the room, Captain Haddad sat staring at Rex, who now lay exhausted on a pile of airline blankets someone had scrounged from first class. The dog's sides heaved, his tongue lolling as a Port Authority officer offered him water from a paper cup. How? Haddad asked Cole, her voice uncharacteristically soft. How did he know? That compartment? We've used that plane for 6 months. I must have walked past that panel 100 times. Cole knelt beside Rex, running his hands over the dog's limbs checking for injuries. Finding none, he scratched behind the Dutch shepherd's ears, the spot that always made the dog's hind leg thump. The panel screws were clean, no grease or grime from regular maintenance. And the wiring bundles were too neat, like someone had rearranged them recently. He nodded to Rex. But mostly? He smelled the difference. Human scent doesn't just disappear because you want it to. Haddad shook her head, a strand of silver coming loose from her braid. I owe you both an apology. And she reached into her flight bag and produced a Ziploc bag with 2 thick ribeye steaks. Derek was supposed to have these in Denver. Consider it a down payment. As dawn broke over Queens, Cole sat in his department-issued SUV watching Rex sleep in the backseat. The dog's paws twitched, chasing phantom threats in his dreams, and Cole wondered not for the first time what images filled AK-9's nightmares. Vasquez had texted that Quan was secure in a black site facility outside Seattle, but Cole couldn't shake the image of Wei's eyes in that final moment before SWAT dragged him away. His phone buzzed with a message from Torres. Autopsy on Wei's 2 associates, shows same nutrient gel in their stomachs. He trained them same way. They failed. He almost didn't. Cole stared at the words until they blurred. Somewhere in the city, the Triad's remaining operatives would be adapting their plans. Next time they'd account for the dog. He started the engine. Time for new protocols.